I love teaching you guys things I grew up eating. So pickled eggplant is something we make every year at this time of year. This is one of those family traditions that was so important to me to learn so I could pass it to my children. My mom has been doing this every year since she was a little girl. Her mother taught her, and so forth and so on. So I really felt it was important for me to learn and to pass it to my daughters. And now I'm going to teach you how we do it. Why do we pickle it now? Because eggplant are at their most delicious at this time of year. This is a jar from last year. I'm only making one jar. This isn't the jars that we make for my family. That we do with my mom. It's 25 pounds of eggplant. It's a lot. So I'm just going to show you in a smaller version. And no matter how many jars you make, the process is all the same. Our process takes about 3 days. We do 24 hours of salt, 24 hours of vinegar. Then we squeeze the vinegar out, season it, and jar it. There's no boiling involved, no boiling of the jars, and no boiling of the actual eggplant. There are many different ways people do this, but this is the way my family does it. So shelf life. Once we jar these, they can stay outside of the refrigerator in a cool, dark place for longer than a year. I've had these jars for 2 years, and they're still good as long as you don't open them. Once you open it, then you need to keep it in the fridge and keep oil on top so that it doesn't go bad. So a few people have asked me, how do you eat this? When do you use it? Honestly, I eat it with a fork right out of the jar. But if you're using it in antipasto. You're putting it in a tomato and cucumber salad on top of a nice frizzelle. You're putting it inside of a sandwich. It's got so many uses and it's so delicious. You need a few tools to get started, but the number one tool you need is patience. And the second tool you need is be quick, because the eggplant will turn brown on you if you don't move fast. So let's go. Day 1 of eggplant pickling. I have about 10 Italian eggplant, which are the smaller eggplant. This eggplant I'm actually peeling right now is from my garden. It's a little larger. And about 10 smaller eggplant are going to fill one 32-ounce jar. I know it sounds like a lot, but they really shrink down. So once I've peeled 3 of them, I start cutting them. The first process is with my mandolin slicer, and I'm cutting them 1/8 inch thick. And I do put the guard on once it gets too close to my hand. One trip to the ER when I was 8 months pregnant with my second daughter, that kind of did it for me. Safety guard from now on. Now I'm cutting it into really fine slivers. This is a preference. My family likes them really thin. You can cut them thicker if you like. It doesn't change the flavor. Now I'm going to place them into a large plastic container. I'm using one of my containers that I make sourdough with. You want to salt them generously. And for the first layer, you want to give it a little mix to make sure everything's covered.
2 hours later.
Just kidding, this isn't 2 hours later, but it kind of feels like that when you're doing it alone. Each layer, you want to salt generously. I placed it on a chair next to me just because it was easier. And as you salt, you want to kind of gently press them down. Once you're done, you place a plate on top and a weight. I usually use a 3-gallon, I don't know what that is, of oil, just to weigh it down. It's already releasing water, if you could see. Cover it in plastic wrap, and
24 hours later.
It has released all of its water, and now I'm going to drain that and add it back into the container. Once I've added it all in, I press it down, and now it's time to add white wine vinegar. You want to make sure you cover it in vinegar. Put your plate back on, put your weight back on, plastic wrap.
24 hours later.
Day 3, we're ready to season. Now I'm going to drain out or squeeze out all of that vinegar. Now I have this contraption. I took it from my mom. She bought it in Italy. You don't need this, but it makes it easier. You can squeeze it out by hand or with a food mill. Now I'm wearing gloves because I don't want to introduce any bacteria into the eggplant. I'm getting my seasoning ready, garlic, peperoncino that I grew. They're so cute. And some oregano. You also want to break it up once you've squeezed it like that. You don't want it to be in big lumps. So here I broke it up, and now I'm going to add all my seasoning in and the olive oil. I'm actually using a combination of sunflower oil and olive oil because if you do total olive oil, when you put it in the fridge, it will solidify. And I don't like that. Press it down gently as you're filling the jar, just so that there's no air pockets in there. Once you've reached within 1 inch of the top of the jar, place a garlic clove, peperoncino, oregano, and fill it with oil almost to the top. Here I'm cleaning the rim with some white vinegar, and I'm not going to place the top on and screw it on. I'm going to leave it loose. You want to do that because the oil is going to settle and sometimes it kind of bubbles out. And now I'm eating last year's eggplant. Oh my God, it's so good. And like Napolitano people say, ma che devo diga fa, which basically means there are no words for how good this is.